started off this initiative, we thought we would we would get about 20 schools to respond, and that we would have the finals and everything on one day. The response was overwhelming. 42 schools enrolled across 4 centers, and we traveled to Durgapur on one day, and then Kharagpur the other, and then Siliguri we conducted online, and of course many of you attended the marathon session in Kolkata at the Akash Baiju Center. The result was that 10 teams scored over 500.
We have all been passionate about debating right from school days, as Pradeep has already told you, and we hope that you people too will continue with this passion irrespective of what the results are, and because there will be only a few winners, but all the others who have participated are also winners. So we sincerely hope that you people will continue this art of debating even when you're in college and later on in life.
Just to tell you the order in which you're speaking, because I've been told you've been kept in the dark about this. So first will be Birla High School, then this is Pradeep tells me has been done by a random draw. Where this was randomized and where it was drawn, only Mr. Guptu is aware of this. But first is Birla High School, second is St. Agnes Higher Secondary School, Kharagpur, third is Army Public School. The Martinia for boys, I presume this is not Lyon, Garden High School, Kolkata, Army Public School, Bendubi is not here either, Future Foundation School, Kolkata, DPS, Ruby Park, Kolkata. So that's the order in which you're going to be speaking today. So let's have the first speaker, Ram Daftari from Birla High School.
At first glance on the motion, I see one very important distinction which has to be made at the beginning of this debate. There are two primary ways in which the given motion can be interpreted. Number one, in a normative sense about how things should be. Schools should be for scoring marks and not for building character. And number two, in a descriptive manner about how it describes the current state of things. Schools are and act as a medium for scoring marks and not for building character. And today, I shall prove to you from both perspectives, the normative sense and the positive sense, how schools are justified and should be for scoring marks and not for building character. Now let us look at this first from the normative sense. Ladies and gentlemen, we must understand something. The opposition will come up here and harp on about core values like honesty, punctuality and empathy. But let me tell you right here and right now that core values do not come under character building. These core values do form the bedrock of human nature. However, what is character, we must ask, ladies and gentlemen? Character is the etymological origin of the term characteristics, which are the unique features which differentiate a person from the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, the concept of schools focusing on character building is inherently flawed in its essence because it defeats the very idea of the formation of characters with individual qualities. Now let me move on to the second aspect of the motion in a normative sense. Why schools should be for scoring marks. The entire purpose of the education system, ladies and gentlemen, is to compare the students, to differentiate them, and then to give them the opportunities presented by the scarce resources we have. As a result of that, if we are to establish a level playing field, if we are to give everybody a chance at fulfilling their dreams and aspirations, the education system should be marks oriented.
You believe that there are certain characteristics that differentiate you from the other students of your school?
Of course, there are some characteristics which differentiate me from others because I have been allowed to develop my character in a sense in which I wish to.
So, which is it? Is it something intrinsically present in a person, or is it something that varies based on circumstances?
Ma'am, those 2 points, you must understand, those 2 points are not contradictory. They are complementary.
Politicians have characteristics, but they don't have character. And he then told me, you must have politicians who are your patients. And I reminded him that the 2 organs in the human body I operate on are called brain and spine. And therefore it is extremely unlikely to find politicians as patients.
A proper education is what shapes a proper human being. Education is the holistic and cognitive development of the mind, which leads to pragmatism and understanding of practical knowledge. Moving on, scoring marks. Where do we score marks in exams? So is the side proposition trying to insinuate that the whole objective of going to school is to fare well in exams? Is that so? Definitely not, because even in the craze of getting more and more marks in exams, the very objective, the very purpose of exams is also getting sidelined. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard me correct. Even the purpose of exams is not being fulfilled. Exams help students to cope up with stress. Marks can help you better your intellect. But EQ, that is emotional quotient and spiritual quotient, gets developed after proper understanding of practical knowledge. And also I remind you, economy is driven by vocational education, vocational training, and not by textbook knowledge and not by bookish knowledge. And why does the school need to have this investiture ceremony and assigning of some captain, vice captain, president? Are the teachers less efficient, or are these fancy badges when put up look very good? No, this is not the reason. As we are all aware, it is done to unleash the leader within you, to develop the leadership skills within you. The very ideal of education, that is to create well-trained and well-educated individuals.
Why do we have invigilators in exam halls?
Rote learning is something we should avoid. The person's own opinions should be put in with context to the subject.
How would you actually analyze the character-related part of an individual at the first moment?
They need to develop these skills among the students, that these are just not the factors. You need to have your own opinions. You need to analyze, and that is the main reason why schools need to develop these characteristics.
I love the reference to the Battle of Panipat, which helps you score marks. But I guess if you refer to the Battle of Plassey, then you understand a little more about character.
Marks is a very important aspect if we see that, as students, we know the importance of marks, and we know how much it matters to us to be first, second, or third in school. It gives us opportunities, it opens many gates for us, and nowadays all we see is cutthroat competition, and schools who are our students, among students, there are people, those who don't even talk to each other, and they are there for just scoring marks, studying, and make a successful career. Shiv Khera, he is a business consultant and an author. In his book, You Can Win, it's a very famous book, he has very rightly said that education that does not train the heart can be very dangerous. Education is important and we are getting it anyway, but the marks we score is somewhat defining our character. At first, when in class 11, if you say your percentage, the teacher will judge you first, and after that he will act accordingly.
Are you aware that for to get into the leading institutions of the world, the Ivy League colleges, even if you get a 1200 SAT score and you do not have a strong CV of extracurriculars including social service, you might not get admission into it?
Marks is more important, and it boosts up your self-confidence.
Do you think in today's technologically driven world, measuring how much students can memorize and to what extent they can threaten the hard drives present in the market is a good use of our time?
See, the students can memorize, but for memorizing they need to understand first.
Education is not just about gaining knowledge from the books, but also building characters and how the way you behave in a situation or in circumstances. For that you need behavior, for that you need politeness, for that you need confidence. Just marks, just your mark sheet, just your things will not happen.
You mentioned creepy toppers. How is that related to the motion at all?
A lot of toppers who get almost 100 and still they are not satisfied with that.
So the first priority is the marks.
Question.
How can you justify this?
No point, right? Getting in the top ranks. If you're being rude with the interview, if you're not getting a career settled, what's the matter of getting into top rankers?
No, I think she was concerned because nowadays you don't need to get marks to get selected also. You may not appear in the exam at all.
Today's question raised is, will my bigger than life personality get me into my dream university? No. If I miss the cutoff by let's say decimals in percentage, not even a personality can help me. Sheelam Paran Bhushanam. That is, character is the utmost virtue is a statement that still holds true in today's era. But guess what? In 21st century, the utmost priority for school is to provide a formal education. That is, to prepare the students for what life has in store for them, whether be it in favor or not. But to say that it is the prerogative of a school to develop a character? Dicey. Why? Because our character is defined by three major determinants. Our home, our peer group, our school. Well, our personality is also very much defined by a peer group. Paul Allen and Bill Gates didn't come up with the idea of leaving Howard University just overnight. In fact, they developed their personalities to such a distinctive level that even without much contribution from the school in the first place, they would still be at the apex. Now, at the end of the day, money is power and survival of the fittest is what the world abides by. But fittest in this context would mean having enough money to sustain yourself as well as your family. The Noah's Ark that you are looking for that will help you keep afloat in the competition of billions is a bank balance, sir. On an empty stomach and no money yourself, how do you plan to stay alive? Where did all that personality of yours go? This National Crime Bureau records for Prison Statistics 2020 26th edition is ranging from 1,306 prisons in 36 states and UTs. And out of 4.88 lakh prisoners, 30% are below the age of 30. That is, in between the age gaps of 18 to 30. Which means that out of those, 41% haven't even studied till class 10th and 26% are illiterate. What I'm trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, the world is a very harsh place to grow in. Just look at all the distractions. Now I like to bring rest to my words by saying, don't take the statement that marks matter a lot.
How did you conclude that marks is what prepares us for the outer world and not character?
A very famous personality once told me about Maharashtra Institute of Technology. Now, what's the difference in between going to Maharashtra Institute of Technology and Massachusetts Institute of Technology? They're both going to look at my marks before telling me to give an interview for my personality, right? So, priority over here is marks, not a character. 1.7% of our criminals have gone above graduation, so you're trying to say that they could be like next Osama bin Laden?
Okay, 1.7% of our criminals have gone beyond education. There's lots of percentage of criminals who have not been detected as criminals who have higher education than that.
It is said that children learn by observing their elders and teachers. Remember those days of childhood when we rushed to our homes, dressing up exactly as teacher did today and striving hard to emulate their style of teaching? We do, right? Because teachers make a mark in our life. And when they scream, don't scream. That also makes a mark in our life. We understand irony in the real essence. And all those days when teachers said, "Arey Baba, it is not can I come in, it is may I come in. Stand straight, don't slouch." It was the little things to us. We said, "Ma'am, we will score 95% and we will become your pride." But today we understand that these were the little things for sure. They were never in a syllabus, never in a curriculum, never something for which we have to say, "Ma'am, half marks, ma'am, 1 marks." But this is the thing which the other person will notice in you before they ask you and pester about the question, how much did you get in your board?
How do you justify schools prioritizing character building over marks when character building fails to fulfill the very purpose of the education system?
Well, I think it's better that you sometimes open your ears when I'm saying, because I never say schools must prioritize character development over marks. I say schools also provide for character development as much as it does for marks.
Did you have to ultimately pay for both the window panes that you broke?
Well, if that's the question, I would say monetarily no, but in case of learning, I think I learned a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shakespeare had written his version of the existential question of our lives, to be or not to be. Listening to my fellow speakers today, I think that in the context of the Indian education system, it can be amended to 95% to be or 90% not to be. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, today the motion placed before us demands us to understand what schools are. Because what speakers who have been spending maximum of 2 or 3 hours away from school today are speaking so nostalgically about the school environment that we have forgotten the exact position of school in society. Because school cannot be viewed as this idealistic place where we have interactions between teachers and students. At the end of the day, the school is a fundamental social institution. And as a fundamental social institution, the school is an institution where a small number of experienced people or teachers teach a large number of young minds the ways of getting adapted to the status quo of society. They instill obedience to authority structures as one of the core values of school education. They instill a sense of competition in preparation for social Darwinism. School as a social institution does all these things, where in school, in which the stakeholders are not just teachers and students, but also society at large, which controls who these schools decide to churn out. The government at large. Where in this definition of school do you see any benefit for these stakeholders in building the character of these students? Understand, ladies and gentlemen, what is character? Today, we have heard so many versions of character. Learning values is character, doing sports is character, going to extracurricular competitions is character. It reminds me of me trying to score marks in an exam by writing everything in the book for a question which does not demand it.
Character is an individual's responsibility. So when an individual is wrong or is doing which is a criminal act, why are the institutions blamed that maybe this person was studying in this institution, the environment of that institution must not be right, that's why the person's character is like that. Would you like to justify this?
Thank you, ma'am. I never said character is an individual responsibility. I said character is an individualistic thing. It depends on you becoming an individual with individual values and then committing to those values and standing up in society.
So, backbone to our existence or backbone to our consciousness? We've got an expert beside you. I'm sure he'll be amused to listen to this query.
Consciousness is what determines how we lead our existence. If we have consciousness, it is the sum of our morals and outlooks on life. Therefore, if you have a backbone in your consciousness, if you have a backbone when it comes to how you decide to think, how you decide to look at the world, you'll obviously have a backbone in your existence or the actions that come as a result of that thinking.
What builds a character? A character is not built over one night. Today, I can't say that I have built a character just after waking up from last night. Today, I can say that I have built a character over the past few years, and that has happened because of my experiences in school. Understand that, as I said, school is not merely an institution to provide education. It is an accumulation of experiences and interaction. Ladies and gentlemen, understand that when do we develop characters? When we step outside our comfort zone. When we step out and face the outer realm, what we know as society. When we interact with society, we come to meet with new people. There is an exchange of ideas, and then it is up to us to decide whether we mix with bad company or whether we mix with good company. These are the factors that lead to the development of a character. And now let us question ourselves. When did we first step out of this comfort zone? When did we first face this outer world? It was in kindergarten, ladies and gentlemen. I still remember my first day of school when I started crying after seeing so many people in front of me. But today again, standing here 12 years later, I have the confidence to come here and present my views in front of me. And that is because my character has been developed by the years that I have spent in school. Understand that a speaker also came up and said that peer groups have a very important factor to play in the development of our characters. And then he also went on saying that schools have no importance in building of character. But understand that an integral part of a school life is our peer group. If we are honest about our very school life, we spend more time with our peers than we do with our teachers. It is a fact that needs to be admitted. We try out different things at the back of the class. And all these are the factors that actually helps us in building a character.
What if a person is getting into the outer world and is developing character when the person is in college and is into scoring marks in school? So how do you justify this? Because ultimately character is getting developed that time also.
Right, thank you for your question. I'm not denying the fact that characters don't keep developing in the later part of our life. But I'm admitting the fact that this very complex process of character building starts from school. As I said, the very first impression that we take on the outside world is our very school. If we spend our lives sitting in our homes and only studying from the textbooks, we will develop no character at all because we don't know what actually the world has in store for us. It definitely does get developed in college as well. But the basic foundation of this character building starts from school only.
Since you're the only hand up, bit like the Congress party.
Offending, but I'll continue. You pointed out that I said schools were useless, right? At the end. I never said schools were useless. I just said that we didn't need them at that part. While it may have the same essence, it's not exactly the same word. It's the same words, right? My question to you is, if honesty is such an important characteristic and part of character development, why is education requiring my fees? Make it free.
So, firstly, I fail to understand what your question has to do with the topic at large. Understand that what my speech entailed was basically how schools are for building character. I don't see how the aspect of paying fees come up in the first place.
You did congratulate him for remembering his first day in school. That's not very difficult because 9 out of 10 of us would have cried on the first day. So it's not very difficult to remember that.
When we speak of school being for something, we're not referring to what it actually accomplishes. We are instead referring to the expectations associated with school in terms of its essential function, which is to say, the functions of school that are deemed closest to what is perceived as the essence of schooling. And that is why our primary course of inquiry today lies in identifying these expectations and the essential function that they concern. There are many ways in which we could go about doing that, but chief among them, and the most informative in my opinion, is to see how the institution of schooling collectively prioritizes compensating for certain functions over others when faced with a situation that is not conducive to any of them. And for a compelling and insightful case study, we have COVID-19. For the past 2 years, you see, online school was all the rage. And yet, the idea of schooling adapted itself to the situation in such a way that prioritized limiting the damage done to the provision for securing marks over all else. Character building, we had character building, but we had it in other contexts. We had it in personal interactions with our friends, we had it in our individual means of adapting to the unfamiliar situation. But in the context of school, in our capacity as school-going students, it was practically nil. And you can't argue with that either, because that is the organic direction in which the idea of schooling shaped itself to accommodate itself to what was viewed as its main purpose. And that speaks volumes about what that main purpose is seen as being. And the best part is, throughout, the activity of attending online classes retained the designation of school. And that brings me to my next indicator, which is language. You see, language gives us unparalleled insights into the perspective society and culture hold towards a particular phenomenon or institution. And the English language, for example, in English phraseology, we have the word schoolwork. And we know what it refers to. It's not some sort of some thought experiment. It's not some hypothetical moral quandary that you would have to sift through and come out wiser from at the end. No, it's regular old academic assignment, and we interpret that readily. So too with the statement, he is doing well in school. It doesn't have to be specified what specifically is doing well at. The collective perception of school and the idea of the word school being synonymous with marks is just that firmly embedded into our collective consciousness.
How can you base your speech on something that society perceives and not what the actual effects of the schooling system is?
Okay, I'll tell you that. That's because when we look at the word, the school is for something. That suggests the subjunctive mode, does it not? That suggests a hypothetical deviation from what it is. And it is in light of that deviation that I believe that the best way to determine what school is for in an ideal typical scenario is to see the general perception of what it is for. Because if I were to go out here and dogmatically just expound my own perspective and say, this is what I think school is for, this is what I think it would represent in an ideal typical scenario, then that is not taking a holistic view. And that is why I introduced the element of society, to give myself a broader perspective.
It becomes very boring when you answer questions at face value. There are 3 ways of answering questions. You can answer questions at face value, take it logically, analyze it analytically, explain it literally, which is very good, but most people don't listen to you. The other, of course, you can be like our parliamentarians and legislators. You can give an answer which in no way has any relevance to the question asked, because you speak completely tangentially to the circle of question. The third thing is to assert yourself. And I'm not taking sides, but if I was giving a talk and saying that marks are more important than character, and some bright spark in the audience stood up and continuously asked me this question, that do you think that character is not important, I would be tempted to tell him, right, at the end of my mathematics exam in ICSE, I came out and a friend of mine asked me, how much did you get? And I said, I got a lot of character, but I scored 0. How will he feel? So, I'm just saying this as a sentence because you have to be dogmatic in how you answer the question and make your point very clearly without speaking too much. One of the ironical things about this debate, and I was just thinking about this, is we're talking about building character and scoring marks. And which ones do our schools represent? If you have very low character, they throw you out of the school early. They get rid of you. If you have low marks, they keep you longer and make you fail year to year. So you sometimes wonder what's the purpose of the school, to have low character or low marks, or high character or high marks. You understand the irony. You have low character, they throw you out in class 5 and say, get lost, your character is not good enough. And you score persistently 10% in class 5, you spend a lot more time in class 5 and a few more extra years in 6 and 7, and they keep you in school longer. So you wonder why.
42 schools unanimously believe that it is well acceptable to forego one regular school day to come participate in this championship. And I think nobody will deny that all of us present here are not here for scoring marks, are we? Let us broadly classify the stakeholders of a school into two. First, teachers and administrators. Second, students and their parents. From the perspective of the former segment, the motion would imply that schools should function in a way that only facilitates scoring of marks, completely ignoring the focus on the latter half, that is character development. If that is the case, I ask you, why does the central government, along with the state governments and union territory administrations, support the creation and augmentation of infrastructural facilities, including playgrounds, in every government elementary and secondary schools? Also, why do we find a little column at the bottom of our report cards focusing on discipline, conduct, overall impression? Many of us are wearing prefect badges on our blazers today. The duties that a school entrusts upon its captains, vice captains, prefects, head boys, head girls are in no way linked with scoring marks, but it surely enhances our managing skills, leadership qualities, sense of responsibility, all of which are undeniably crucial for a person's character. From a different aspect, let us look at the chapters that have been taught to us from an early age, from Aesop's fables to Salvatore. Even a curriculum is framed in such a way that tries to inculcate within us the various human qualities that build up a character, that build up a person's character. Every school organizes intra as well as inter-school fests, and I don't think those events are organized to help us for scoring marks, rather than they intend on contributing to our holistic development. At this point, my opponents would unanimously raise their voice to reduce such fests in schools. To that, I would have to say that it is indeed an act of extreme hypocrisy on your part that you are standing here today representing your schools in a state-level championship and completely nullifying the importance of such events. To sustain in a world that has its rule as survival of the fittest, you need logic, practicality, quick thinking, presence of mind, every trait that your school tries to inculcate within you. That goes on to prove my point that I have no issues with scoring marks. Obviously, it is extremely important, but it has no contradiction with the latter half of the motion as well. Marks are simply a construct devised by your school to assess a pupil's academic performance. But to define or to base a definition of a school based on this construct is to, rely its definition on itself for its solidity, and to deny it from an identity beyond itself.
itself.
Would you rather the judging panel over there not give you any points or marks for your speech today?
Obviously, but the scoring marks, that is, I would request my opponent to read the motion for today more carefully, because it is particularly mentioned that schools have a scoring marks, which means assessing our academic performance related specifically to our academic curriculum. And the debate here, for which we will be scored to see who's going to go first or second or third, is just to see whether we have the required speaking skills, required content for the debate or not. That goes on to establish my point that it's not just academics that we are looking for.
But in the ICSE board and the CBSE board, one of which in which you study, co-curricular activities like debate are identified as an essential part of the curriculum. How do you define the scoring of points or marks as a competitive endeavor does not apply to these parts, these things which are in all boards identified as an essential part of the curriculum?
You are going on to establish my own point, my friend, because debate is a part of the curriculum, not for helping us to score marks for any subject, but to enhance our speaking abilities or the logical part of our brain, to cultivate the logical part of our brain.
Since the Calcutta Debating Circle also endeavors to teach you some fine points of debating, I'm going to tell you how I would have answered Nikhilesh's question. If he asked me this question, which was very long-winded, required a lot of concentration, first of all, to follow the question, my answer would be snakes and ladders. And I would pause, because like we have a gentleman there saying, is this guy crazy, what's he saying? I would say, yes, snakes and ladders. School depends on what you take it for. When you played snakes and ladders, your aim was to play the dice to get to that top left-hand square fast. So in other words, you thought the aim of the game was to get high marks and get there first. But snakes and ladders, as you went along, taught you that there were ladders you could rush up to, but there was that snake in 96 that could bring you down to 19. Just when you were close to 100. So it also taught you that life is about ups and downs and how to cope with it. In other words, about character. And that way you would have the audience listening to every word that you said and possibly eating right out of your hand, which is the whole purpose of a debating speaker.
And that is something that we tend to forget because we are exposed to that at a very young age, school or otherwise, you see, and yet do not remember what it has taught us. Shisha did talk about reports and a line at the bottom which talked about character, right? Conduct certificate.
Others haven't done here is asked a question at the beginning, and that's my job. Let us look at things around us. We have often heard of phrases like creepy toppers that someone has put out. But these are the creepy toppers who actually show up on newspapers in the advertisements. Someone spoke about a PT period. I think it was Manisha, my friend Manisha. Now let me tell you, when you have a PT period, you are given the opportunity to play with your friends and enjoy the game. But we should also realize that what happens after a PT period is of vital importance. There are two groups of students, the winners and the losers, and the losers fight with the winners and the quarrel goes on. If the quarrel goes on in a school, how is that actually developing character? How well you have actually done only for the sake of playing the game and not taking the game in your stride, that is what is shown in your report card to your parents. And therefore schools are valuing only a mere quantitative assessment over qualitative assessment, which parents do not see when they see the report card. Also realize that only a few students are given the opportunity to really become a leader. And for the vast majority of people, if they do not make it, they are only left out. And this is what shows in India, because of low marks in interviews or even exams, there are high suicide rates. That is because people are not taught to take in character and learn from their mistakes. They just give up with the face of competition. In schools, I can definitely say that the only way to make a mark is by scoring marks. And that's the reality which people have ignored.
Do you think the importance of character building in our lives is undermined simply due to its lack of recognition in schools?
Now, if you're talking about recognition, teachers also see you displaying team spirit or say they see you displaying skills. but it is not recognized by the teachers. They don't consider it as important, and nor do people who are judging you. So your question was whether it's undermined, right? Your question whether it's undermined. It is undermined by the society at large and by everyone around us.
You say that schools, that teachers the students are remember when they are making a mark only in case of marks. So don't you think that if a person has not got good marks but has made something, been successful in life, or has been obedient, or can also make a mark in the teacher's heart?
You look at the mark sheet, you will only see the number. And a number is given more importance in the mark sheet rather than what you have displayed in class. Will you actually see a teacher who's catering to 40 students writing an individual comment about you? He or she will mostly say, I am not paid to do this. And that's the reality of the education system which you're not talking about.
Please don't imply on the fact that schools compel you to take in whatever character they want to build in you. This way you're insulting your own school, so don't do that. And then someone said that homeschooled people are less likely to respond to friends. Guys, homeschooled, not complete isolation. They do have friends, come on. And now you're so worried about career that you think good marks is all about it. No. People are still surviving, right? Career is mainly about helping you survive, the money. People are still surviving, still fighting in your country who do not have a good career, who do not have qualifications. And someone, in order to prove his point, just call himself spineless. Please help. Say, my friend Kavya from DPS, she scores 99% in her 12th, I score 69%. Still, in order to get jobs, both of us will have to sit for interviews. So interviews check what? Your knowledge, your conduct. And I hope you will all agree that if we compare marks to our planet, then knowledge is our entire galaxy, even more. And come on, if you are only concerned about good career, then character certificates are important. My school believes in integral education taught by Sri Aurobindo. So I have spent half my student life practicing life skills more than history facts. And that is good. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to stop thinking about, say, classes 9 to 12 when Akash, Fiji, Pathfinder, they become your lovers and you cannot survive without them. No, our characters are already built by them, or mostly built by them. It was built back in school when we were taught good manners, good touch, bad touch, etiquette, habits, life skills, whatnot. It was built when teachers made us sit on fields and showed us which tree was which, when we cooked together without fire, when we understood for the first time that nothing stops for anything. Master Shruja Sen, he inspired nationalists to protest. And I hope many of us are film buffs here. We've all watched Hirak Raja Deshan. Think about Udayapundi.
Okay, go on. You can both ask your questions one after the other.
Do you realize that in statement lies the hidden truth that at the end of the day, teachers are prioritizing marks, and what teachers really want at the end of the day is their students to score more marks, better marks in the future, rather than actually developing some sort of character?
No, I'm sorry. Thank you for your question, but I'm sorry, I think you're mistaken in understanding what I was trying to say. I said that teachers console us when we are broken, when we are at our lowest. They are not paid for that. That is in no way related to marks.
Do you equate the emotional experiences of friendship, companionship, and love in school to the process of building character, or the process of character building which the motion demands? How do you equate these two entirely different things?
I don't understand how it will be entirely different. I think you've confused maturity with character development, or experience with character development. What is character development? The very basic instincts of human nature, very basic stuff like love, like whatever I said. So I don't see what's wrong in it.
I have a question for Sandeep in this context, because Rajavati did mention about oversized brains. Does schooling leave you with an oversized brain?
In fact, I am going to respond to the question about spineless first. Don't call anybody spineless, because it's again a matter of perspective. If you call an invertebrate spineless, they might not take it badly at all. But if you call a vertebrate of the species of Homo sapiens spineless, then they might have a different interpretation. And don't forget, per person with a spine on this universe, or this planet of ours, there are 100,000 people without spines. And I don't mean the human race, because we have 100,000 invertebrates per vertebrate on this planet. So that's a biological fact as well. about the brain being, what did you say? Oversized brain in school. Yeah, I think the difference between marks and character is related to the difference between having oversized brains versus oversized hearts. And I think a lot has to do with the difference between the two. Those that have oversized hearts also have oversized wallets. Those that have oversized brains have narrow wallets. So that's why there's so much of money for cardiac surgery and so little for brain surgery in this world.
Before I begin, the debate today is not for school and against school. I have been waiting to get that out for the past hour. Please. Now, being the last speaker from the proposition, I'll be expected to speak about the speeches and not the motion. So that will be exactly what I am doing. The motion today. Every single speaker who came before me sided on one side of the motion. That is either, no, schools give complete character development, or no, school gives complete marks, they give no character development. But the debate today lies in the grey area, because the motion today states that schools support or give or are mainly made for scoring marks, not for building character. It does not say that schools are places such that they are incapable of building any sort of character. So the point today lies is that while we give our preference to the academic side, character building is also a priority but is below our academic preferences. Now, let me come down to the second speaker who mentioned preparation for exams. Preparation for exams keeps the same aim. Scoring marks, as is the main aim that has been demonstrated in the motion, keeps the same. The character change or the development that we speak about today is like an invisible guardian. A Nazi and the person who grew up to be a non-Nazi went to the same school, ladies and gentlemen. But the only reason that they have different ideologies later in life is due to their personal individualism. Or that school would have produced only Nazis or only non-Nazis. And therefore, schools are not to be blamed over here. The personal ideologies of the persons are the ones that is to be counted or that is to be held accountable. The way we approach the trophies, the way we win those trophies, that defines our character and that basically leads to our character development. Now, another point that I believe that none of the speakers has touched yet is considering the grassroots level, the government schools. Do you think that the child of a daily wage worker actually goes to school to bond with his or her friends? They go to school to play with the first thing in their mind? No. The first thing that comes in their mind when they step within that institution is that they have to excel in that particular field. Not even excel, get some sort of grades, get a job later in life so that they can give themselves, their own children and their own parents a much, much better future than they had previously imagined. The problem here lies in the twisting of the definition and the purpose of schooling itself. Because schools themselves entitle academic purposes in the beginning and then everything else in the later positions. But what the modern world has done has caused the students to distract their focus from their original side to the rest and thereby leading to much, much lower productivity levels. Hence, I would like to end my speech by saying that the proposition today, unlike as the other speaker said, does not say schools, bad, nothing. They do no shit except take money from us. That is not what we are trying to prove. The only thing that we try to prove today is that schools provide us with both. But the academic priorities of a particular student should be higher than the priorities that they set aside for their character development.
The character development plays a part in allowing the pursuit of marks to remain constant. It plays a part with instilling within us the values that enable us to focus on our job and not to get distracted, not to get disheartened. So how do you justify that sort of binary you're drawing between the two? How do you justify?
Firstly, I'm glad that you asked this question because I included it in my speech and I had to remove it because of the time constraint. Alright, so if someone told you that you have to score good marks else you will fail your midterms and you won't be promoted to the next year and your parents will be called to school. And if someone told you in order to make your character better you actually need to score marks. Now I will ask you which will have more immediate effect. The phrase that I use, guardian angel, is like an invisible catalyst that we use over here, because it further speeds up the process, the reaction that we use in order to reach to our goal.
Do you think the other institution would prioritize the marks or the character certificate? They'll say that the person is fighting. Why do we take that person in the school? Even if he has scored 95 plus percentage. Can you justify this statement?
I justify the points that you said were wrong in my speech. I would like to justify what was wrong with your question. Because as I said in the beginning, today the debate is about how we perceive what schools amount to us instead of saying what schools actually do. So what the school would do is upon the discretion of the school, right? Because we are not the members of the school. The actual members of the school who decide who is to be let in or who is to be let out depends upon a board of trustees who is outside. So it is not what the school is expected to do. It is what we expect of the school.
Can I make a request to all the speakers to stop talking about creepy toppers? Because somehow it reminds me of head lice.
Possibly he wants to take that as a future career also, diplomacy, right?
But diplomacy doesn't always work in debates.
Shondeep wants to say something, but before that, why not just one thing? The teacher in me is coming to the fore at this particular point of time. The correct pronunciation of the word is Nazi and not Nazi.
So first of all, I'll ask you a question. Are any of you getting any marks for being here? Because contrary to what Ranjavali thinks, I am not getting 99% and I could certainly do with a few more marks in chemistry. Right. So considering a few of the statements made by the proposition, the speaker from Garden High mentioned that the expectation we have from school is that we go there for marks. Excuse me if the expectation I have is of holistic development, because most school websites have the word holistic prominently featured in big and bold letters, and not to mention the government with its NEP, but that's alright, right? A few speakers mentioned the pandemic. So when you stated about the pandemic, you said that it hasn't really impacted us, but that's not exactly true, is it? We have been called the pandemic batches, and a lot of us have had problems with social interactions, behavioral problems, and all of this is more or less a result of the fact that we were not in the proper school environment that we should have been in. We spent 40-hour work weeks, actually no, learning weeks in school, but then again, that is where we meet new people, that is where we spend the most of our time, and that is where we learn new things. This is the place where we have most of our experiences, and this is the place where most of our character is developed. And it is not a byproduct that is happening, it is more or less an intentional and organized result of the school process.
No school prescribes Harry Potter as a textbook which you must read. And they prescribe other textbooks which may not be as valuable. So how does your point stand justified with respect to the motion?
Well, Harry Potter does not need to be a textbook to be used as a case study or basically as an example in my speech.
Yesterday I logged on to the website of DPS Ruby Park, and the first thing that I saw was a pop-up of your toppers in JEE, NEET and the CBSE exam. So could you justify this hypocrisy?
If you had gone through the website in its entirety, of course, I'm not denying the fact that our school does promote people who score marks, but it also promotes people who are engaged in extracurricular activities.
Before you continue the answer, you are not bound to answer this question because this is not a question that has any direct or indirect reference to the speech that this question should have been provoked by.
And she's not responsible for the policies of her school.
But you can feel free to answer all the same. But if you feel that the question does not have any direct connection with what you've said, you may choose to say so as well.
Well, I'll not answer your question. Thank you.
But he tells you, can you prove a red fire engine is red? Then of course the logical way of saying it is just go out and stand on the road till you see the next fire engine pass and see its color. But if you're colorblind like Pradeep, then how do you explain this to him? Then you have to use logic. So you say, 8 plus 4 make 12, 12 inches are found in a ruler. Queen Elizabeth was the name of a ruler. Queen Elizabeth was also the name of a ship. Ships sail in sea, seas have water, waters have fishes, fishes have fins, fins are the friends of the Russians, and the Russians are red. That's why I'm firing.
I just want to say that I found it fascinating listening to all of you. I'm I've become a judge at a debate after a very long time, and I've done this before for colleges, never for schools. So for me it was a revelation, you know, that you all could speak so well, you all could think so well and express what you were thinking. The only thing that I want to tell all of you is that be more positive when you're on the stage.
You have how to deal with the real world, and you also have things like debate all in the same space. So what does it mean for a school to change as the world outside is changing? Right? And how you can integrate that into the speech is something that I would have liked to hear.
I think marks is about answering questions. Character is about questioning answers.
About the debate itself, I really like that some of you were able to describe certain things in the motion right from the outset, right from the first speech. For example, stuff like this debate is about what schools are supposed to do, not what they can do, or whether what they do is good or bad. It's not really about a value judgment, it's about what schools are expected to do. So at this level, I was really happy that many of you caught on to stuff like this. I think there could have been more things you caught on to. For example, I think side opposition's burden in this debate was really, really small, you know. They just had to prove that personality development is also a part of what schools do, not the only part.
There was unanimous suggestion from Dr. Chatterjee and Mr. Raman and the others that there is one speaker we would like to recognize for his excellence, and that is Ram Daftari.
Thanks to Pradeep, Rajuda, Shundip who's not here, Mayuri, everyone for helping in and making this. Obviously, I was the one who worked the least for this event. Thanks Akash Baijus, without whom it was as much as their brainchild as it was ours. And I think these two hard-working parents made this event possible. And we had an interruption of COVID and the rest of it. But let's continue with this. And before the virus created a minor stir in the world, we were dreadfully near to an international tour with our school debating team, which hopefully should come to fruition sometime next year.
2023 stuff.
Yes. Thank you, and thanks to all of you for all the hard work you put in.